Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. We've won, people. The streak is broken. It feels a bit good just to be talking about a Liverpool victory again, doesn't it? A thumping in Frankfurt and plenty to delve into. Ahead of a game at the Ekitike at the weekend and a few off-the-field issues going on. I'm delighted as ever to be joined by the renowned and the respectable David Lynch. And Christ, if we'd lost, this would have been a nightmare to talk about, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the feeling around kind of 26 minutes in when Eintracht Frankfurt take the lead is like, oh my God, are they going to actually lose again? And they hadn't been like unbelievable up to that point either. So it was kind of, felt feasible. So, I think the mood would have been really bad. And I think the fact is, I mean, I'm not saying that the manager's under pressure, and I kind of think I stressed this in the last podcast, but you can't just keep losing, can you? The squad there's issues and there are problems to solve, but it's good enough not to be losing 5 on the spin or 6 on the spin or 7. So the longer that run goes on, the more concerned you get about the manager, the players that they bought, whatever. It couldn't continue like that, and unfortunately it didn't. So I think the mood around the place will be a lot better today. I think the mood amongst the fan base definitely is as well. So it was a really important result, but possibly even more importantly than the result, got performance as well, which I think Arne Slot will be absolutely buzzing about.
I think he will, and I suppose I know there's certain things. I mean, we've got to stop conceding a soft goal. It'd be great if we didn't keep going 1-0 down in games, of course. But apart from that early goal, genuinely for 90% of this game, 99% probably, we were well on top, weren't we? It was that, I'm not saying they're the best opponents. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there was a lot to like for Arne Slot in this one.
Yeah, definitely. It was just the fact that the team overall was balanced. It defended well and attacked well. And the goal, we'll just quickly talk about that. I mean, I kind of watched it back again today just to kind of analyse what went wrong. And it's quite clear. They get counter-attacked on. I think Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones is already in the right back spot to cover Connor Bradley, and Szoboszlai gets dragged over there, and that causes a knock-on effect. And to be fair, they actually all get back in. Even Szoboszlai gets dragged into that position. Once the ball goes past him, he makes sure he gets in the box. And then you've got to say, so there's a mistake there, and you end up in that situation. But sometimes you do have to hold your hand up as well and say, if someone finishes 0.04 expected goal chance against you got to kind of hold your hands up. Like, I mean, it was a bad moment where confusion reigned a little bit, and Frankfurt had got in at Liverpool. But it was the first shot they had. I think it was the only shot on target they had in the entire match. And it's a 0.04 expected goal chance, and it finds the back of the net. Structurally problems in the build-up to it, but they weren't repeated across the game, and Liverpool probably unlucky to concede that one. So, I thought overall after that, defensively very, very solid. They gave up, 0.24 expected goals in the end, so absolutely nothing really. Get over 3 themselves. That's a perfectly balanced performance, particularly away from home and in a tricky atmosphere. So I think the manager will be absolutely delighted. And you touch on that it's not the strongest opposition, and of course that is the case. I mean, they've conceded an awful lot of goals in Europe and in the Bundesliga this season. They've also, one of the things that's worth mentioning is I think they've conceded the most goals in the Bundesliga, but they're the second top scorers as well. So they're just a bit of a chaotic team who can get at you and hurt you. So to stop them scoring or having any threat outside of that goal is quite impressive and should be praised. As much as people want to say it's a bad team who you can score against, that's definitely true. And Liverpool made the most of that. They're really good attacking side, Frankfurt. So to keep the clean sheet, well, not keep the clean sheet, but to keep them down to 1, to limit the chances so much, that's another kind of positive to take as well.
Definitely. And I mean, speaking of chances, I know we scored 5, so we can't be complaining at all. We could have had double figures realistically, couldn't we, in terms of the chances that we created and the things we made happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you probably will say on that front that, Frankfurt are weak defensively, but, Liverpool made the most of it. And, you have as well got to kind of acknowledge that, they've lost games against Chelsea and Manchester United that on the balance of expected goals and chances, they probably should have been winning. Liverpool just needs to start finishing the chances. And as much as you would have said there were structural issues in those games, there were problems for the manager to solve. doesn't half help if you just put the ball in the back of the net when you make chances. And I mean, they were making a series of chances in these games. So nice to see them actually finish those chances off for once. And hopefully, that'll just lift the confidence a bit. And we do start to see these goals go in because they are creating enough. There's no question. Even United, which I thought was a poor performance, they could have won that so easily and won it quite comfortably. So, hopefully the start of a little run of actually finishing these chances off that they're making.
And speaking of a run of finishing chances off, is Aaron Briggs quite relieved this morning a little bit? Because set piece, the chat, and it's been all negative, we've got to be honest about it recently. It's nice to talk about it in a different way this time.
Yeah, I mean, I just definitely think, and as I think I said this last time, that the manager was putting pressure on him and saying, look, this isn't good enough. You've got this job now. We've given you an analyst to work with you. Yeah. We need more. We need to stop conceding set pieces and we need to start scoring them immediately because it's killing us in games. And it was. So, yeah, very nice to see Liverpool, a game where they didn't concede from a set piece. They score 2 of their own. We need to see more of that now. Liverpool need to be a bigger threat from set pieces. We need to see Canate taking his chances. You need to see Van Dijk getting on the end of more of them. There's still a couple early in this game where they're giving fouls away. That has to stop. It feels like that happens incredibly frequently in attacking set pieces that they're giving fouls away. So, but yeah, it takes the pressure off him a little bit. Now he just needs a few more. But it did show, didn't it? I think the importance of set pieces. You don't have to be Arsenal, but Liverpool go from 1-1 to 3-1 in the blink of an eye in that game, just thanks to 2 corners. So, just be slightly better at them.
Yeah, that would be a start. Let's hope it continues as well. And I mean, speaking of continue, for me, there were some good performances, but Dominic Szoboszlai, a goal, an assist, his passing just all round. He was brilliant in this one, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's been brilliant all season, really, hasn't he? I mean, I just think he has to be on the team sheet no matter what, no matter where he is. He's just too important in terms of, he's got that final third end product, hasn't he? And I think that will continue to grow as he kind of grows in confidence and just a bit more experience as well. So, I think there's more to come from him on that front, but it's everything else he does as well in terms of plugging gaps. Like I said, I mean, even when he gets it wrong around the first goal, but he's still actually back in a good position by the time the shot gets taken. So it's that recovery pace really helps him out, even if he makes the wrong decision. And yeah, he's just the engine of this team at the moment. And so I just think no matter what you're naming in midfield, he's got to be in there.
I was going to say, because I know he obviously in the team sheet, but 17 passes into the final third, and I think he won all his duels as well. To me, was there a part of you watched that last night as like, and I know why he's been there, but we've got to have him in midfield and not a right back, haven't we, surely?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly at the moment, while McAllister's so badly out of form, and you just need to find a bit more solidity and control in that centre of the pitch. I think you need him there. The problem is not having him at right back then causes that issue that we know about with build-up. So, I don't know. It's kind of a difficult trade-off for the manager to decide upon. But I think regardless of where he is, he's definitely got to be in the team. I know that. And I would prefer him to be in central midfield if possible. So hopefully he's just not needed at right back as frequently. And that balance can be found because he's a very important player and he's too good to be being stationed out at right back.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And we'll come to his midfield partner as well slightly later. But another player that I really wanted to call out, obviously people have made a fuss about no goals and assists. We didn't expect Florian Wirtz to pop up on the right, a 4-4-2. That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I thought he played really well, despite the fact that's not a kind of natural position. He was given a bit of license to roam, but he really stuck to his defensive task down there. I thought, particularly in that first half an hour or so where Liverpool weren't perfect, you saw him back there helping out his right back quite a lot, working his socks off. And he has got that in his locker. He's got a good engine on him. I mean, FOTMob had the metrics for kind of distance covered on their website for the first couple of Premier League game weeks. And I think there's been a rights issue around it now. So it's gone, unfortunately. Really hope that comes back. But I do remember from the Bournemouth game, I think only Szoboszlai covered more ground than him in that game. So it just shows you he can get about the pitch and he will work his socks off. So that's, I think he did well there. One thing I would say is if you're going to go with the 4-4-2, in the long term, I don't feel like it's a massively natural position for him. I would rather have him on the left coming inside. But then obviously that's a decision you have to make with Gakpo and who do you use down the right-hand side. It's maybe a tough one for the manager. But in the short term, I thought very good yesterday. And, I think he's just not been anywhere near as bad as people have kind of made out in terms of the level of his performances anyway. I just think he's been a bit unlucky that the end product's not been quite there. He has been, there's definitely been an element of adapting to a new league as well. But I think he's getting there now, and I think we're really starting to see the best of him. So, hopefully that gives him confidence to get those 2 assists, and he can just take it forward now.
But it's interesting because after the first assist, the one for the Gakpo goal, you could almost see him visibly growing confidence and just doing little touches and little bits. But as you also said, people ignore certain elements because there's the one in the first half where it leads to an Isak shot where he wins the ball in an area, does a little trick, plays it out to Gakpo to set that off. So it was just probably his best all-round performance, wasn't it, last night?
Yeah, and that's it. It's kind of that he has got that to kind of nick the ball as well. And then when you've got him in tight areas, he will take it anywhere. And I love that about him, really. That's the thing that's going to improve Liverpool. He might not necessarily always be the final ball in terms of the assist, but he might be the one before it because he's got a real kind of ability to drag players in towards him. And if he's got 2 cover him, he squeezes the ball out, and all of a sudden there's an overload somewhere for Liverpool to exploit. So he's just a really clever footballer. And I don't think at any point you or I, when we've talked about it, have had any doubts whatsoever that this was coming and that he was going to start really delivering, because he just already looked, even in his more difficult games, he just looked like a very, very good footballer. So looking forward to seeing him grow now.
Yeah, in which position will maybe be the big debate and the one to guess. But yeah, a great performance last night. But a man probably in the attacking sense, Hugo Ekitike, stage is set, goes back to his old club. If Hugo Ekitike had been signed for 125 million this summer, we wouldn't really be batting much of an eyelid right now, would we?
Yeah, he's been sensational, hasn't he? What is he? 6 goals now in 12 appearances, and not all of those have been starts. He's just a very, very good footballer. And I think that it's an interesting kind of contrast, isn't it, with Isak at the moment, in terms of he's just playing better. He just looks a better player at the moment. I'm not saying, excuse me, I'm not saying he is, and he will be in the long term, but right now he definitely is. And I thought everything about his performance last night was just sheer class. I mean, the goal is just brilliant run, great touch across the defender. Love that centre forward play, and then a composed finish. And then I think he gives the ball away twice out of 20 odd passes, wins 4 out of 5 ground duels. He was just winning his battles. He was dropping in, taking the ball, looking after it, getting Liverpool up the pitch, and he finishes his chances as well. I mean, what more could you want from a centre forward? He's an absolutely class act, really. And he was a big part of that performance yesterday.
Yeah, brilliant 3 touches and the controlled finish, the apology, everything there. I suppose the one thing when that went in, that it was brilliant, but almost made me a bit angry. It just almost makes the decision for the last 2 games, the previous 2 defeats, to have him on the bench even more baffling. And this isn't trying to dig at Alexander Isak, but when you look at the contrast between the two, what they're offering, and what you've seen from Ekitike when he comes on, it does make you just scratch your head. Why hasn't he been starting the last few?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair decision because, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't see training, and the manager's probably looking at Isak saying this guy is unbelievable. And I mean, he is unbelievable. I just don't think Liverpool are doing as good a job as feeding him as they maybe are with Ekitike for whatever reason. Although you can put that on the player himself as well, partly because you do have to get the chances yourself. It's all about your movement and keeping hold of the ball and making it work. So, but yeah, the fact is that Isak hasn't been great in those games, and Ekitike, whenever he's touched the pitch, definitely has been. So I just think in the short term, you've got to recognise that, and you've got to keep going with the one who's the strongest. Much the same in any position, really. Who's playing best in this moment? Who's the most likely to get me on a run of results? And Ekitike, for me, is the one, so he should be staying in the team.
It does really feel that way. And I suppose the final one on last night, because you can almost overanalyze at times, but Andy Robbo at the back. Maybe, I mean, people will debate, could he have done better for the goal? Should it go through his legs? And then we've talked about scene of the crime and things like that. But the one big thing that was noticeable last night was we just looked more progressive with him passing it out. You know, there was more link with Cody Gakpo at the same time, whether it's a natural understanding. And again, this isn't trying to be a dig at Milos Kerkez, but it just looked more fluid and progressive with him there almost.
Yeah, one thing I would say about that is kind of in terms of the ball progression, I didn't feel like Frankfurt were pressing high as many of Liverpool's opponents have done recently. So it does make it easier. I absolutely agree that Robertson's a more progressive passer than Kerkez. He's much more comfortable with the ball at his feet in deep areas, but he did have it a little bit easier yesterday in terms of there wasn't the kind of a man running at him and making it really difficult to find a pass. So, got to be fair to Kerkez on that one. And I think Kerkez is perfectly capable, by the way, of playing that little loft up the line to get Ekitike in for the goal. We've said, again, spoke about it before about, I think a lot of the criticism of Kerkez has been over the top. But what I would say is, equally, I think a lot of the criticism of Robertson for some of last season was a bit over the top. And I think he's a perfectly good option to rotate between the two of them this season. So, he again proved that if you can come in for a Champions League game, get an assist and help you win 5-1, then you're absolutely happy with that as a rotational option. So, he's still really important to the squad. And I thought he played well yesterday.
Lot of good performances, a lot of good things to take from last night as well.